I came across a really fascinating conversation on Twitter that I think we could all benefit from. One person says to Michael Knowles, "You and your buddy still haven't answered if you agree with the Pope's condemnation of mass deportation." Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire responds and says, "I love and respect the Holy Father and accept without question those teachings which he and all successors to St. Peter proclaim by a definitive act regarding some doctrine of faith or morals ex cathedra." So I think this is a really good teaching moment because there's a really common assumption that's being made here, and I think it's a mistake that a lot of people tend to make whenever they have discussions about the magisterium, the church's teaching authority. But before we go any further, I'm Michael Lofton, a theologian and a professor, and this channel focuses on educating people and offering commentary on current events. And I would really appreciate your support of the channel. Go ahead and press that subscribe button for me if you don't mind. So let's go ahead and table the issue of immigration and what Pope Francis has said about it. We can deal with that in another video. Today I want to hone in on one particular issue. Many Catholics are under the impression that their obligations and duties to accept what the teaching authority of the Church says is only limited to things that are ex cathedra or infallible in nature. They tend to think that, well, if it isn't taught infallibly, then it's up for grabs. Either what the Church says is infallible and I have to accept it in that case, or what the Church says, if it's not taught infallibly, it's up for grabs. Take it or leave it. I don't have to assent to the teaching. But this is simply not the case. It's an oversimplification of one's duties to assent to the teachings of the magisterium. The profession of faith promulgated by Pope John Paul II says this: "Moreover, I adhere with religious submission of intellect and will to the teachings which either the Roman Pontiff or the College of Bishops enunciate when they exercise their authentic magisterium, even if they do not intend to proclaim these teachings by a definitive act." So the profession of faith, which every single Catholic is obligated to accept, requires a person to accept not only teachings that are taught infallibly by the magisterium, but also those that are non-infallible, those that are taught by a non-definitive act. In fact, teachings in this category, non-infallible teachings, make up the vast majority of the teachings of the magisterium. So most of the stuff that you see in papal encyclicals and stuff like that, those are non-definitive acts of the magisterium. So if a Catholic were to say they only accept the teachings of the magisterium that are infallible in nature, and even more limitedly, those that are ex cathedra, then they're effectively saying they don't have to accept the vast majority of the teachings of the Catholic Church. Now, of course, that's absurd, and the Catholic Church corrects that error. Here's something that the Second Vatican Council in its document Lumen Gentium, paragraph 25 says: "In matters of faith and morals, the bishops speak in the name of Christ, and the faithful are to accept their teaching and to adhere to it with a religious assent. This religious submission of mind and will must be shown in a special way to the authentic or authoritative magisterium of the Roman Pontiff, even when he is not speaking ex cathedra. That is, it must be shown in such a way that his supreme magisterium is acknowledged with reverence. The judgments made by him are sincerely adhered to, according to his manifest mind and will. His mind and will in the matter may be known either from the character of the documents, from his frequent repetition of the same doctrine, or from his manner of speaking." So that's just a fancy way to say that you have to accept or assent to the teachings of the Pope even when they're not ex cathedra. So when a Catholic is asked, "Do you accept the Pope's teaching on X, Y, and Z?" a person cannot respond, "I accept only those teachings that are ex cathedra in nature." That would be to miss the point, and it would be to miss an entire category of magisterial teachings that the Catholic Church requires assent to. And one of the many reasons why the magisterium says this is because it says even outside of those infallible acts of the Church, there is a divine assistance given even to the non-infallible teachings of the Pope and the College of Bishops. This can be found in one of my most favorite documents of the magisterium, Donum Veritatis. Here's what it says in paragraph 17. "Divine assistance is also given to the successors of the apostles teaching in communion with the successor of Peter, and in a particular way to the Roman Pontiff as pastor of the whole Church, when exercising their ordinary magisterium, even if this should not issue in an infallible definition or in a definitive pronouncement, but in the proposal of some teaching which leads to a better understanding of revelation and matters of faith and morals, and to the moral directives derived from such teaching." Again, another fancy way to say even those teachings that are not ex cathedra and they're not infallible in nature, those teachings enjoy a divine assistance. God protects them in some way, maybe not in their infallibility, but in some other sense, there is a divine assistance for them. And for this reason, a Catholic must assent to them with religious submission of intellect and will. In fact, paragraph 31 makes it very clear that a well-trained theologian, under very specific conditions and very rare cases, may withhold assent to teachings in this category, but it's incredibly rare. And it also goes on to note in multiple paragraphs after that dissent against the teaching of the magisterium for teachings in this category is never permitted. And this is where some people get confused. They think that this means that you can never criticize the magisterium. Please see my video, Can Catholics Criticize the Pope? Short answer, yes. For a breakdown on the difference between dissent, withholding assent, constructive criticism, and destructive criticism. These are all four concepts that need to be distinguished. I'll also add that my most favorite document, a commentary from Cardinal Ratzinger and Bertone on the doctrinal commentary on the concluding paragraphs of the Profession of Faith, says the following. A proposition contrary to these doctrines, in reference to non-infallible teachings of the Church, can be qualified as erroneous, or in the case of teachings of the prudential order, as rash or dangerous, and therefore cannot be taught safely. This means that Catholics cannot promote positions contrary to what non-infallible teachings of the magisterium state, or even prudential judgments of the Church. We should also keep in mind that Pope Pius XII in 1950, in his document Humani Generis, stated that whenever a pope teaches something, even if it's in an encyclical, even if it's not infallible, once he teaches it, that closes the matter and people are no longer allowed to debate them. Here's what he says. Nor must it be thought that what is expounded in encyclical letters does not of itself demand consent, since writing such letters the popes do not exercise the supreme power of their teaching authority. For these matters are taught with the ordinary teaching authority, of which it is true to say, he who heareth you, heareth me. And generally, what is expounded and inculcated in encyclical letters, already for other reasons, appertains to Catholic doctrine. But if the Supreme Pontiffs in their official documents purposely pass judgment on a matter up to that time under dispute, it is obvious that that matter, according to the mind and will of the Pontiffs, cannot be any longer considered a question open to discussion among theologians. Did you catch that part, he who heareth you, heareth me? Well, the rest of that verse from the Bible also says, he who rejects you, rejects me and him who sent me. In other words, what the Pope is saying is whenever a Pope settles a matter, even if it's non-infallible, people are to accept it. And if they reject it, they're actually rejecting not just the teachings of the Pope, but the teachings of Jesus through the popes. And keep in mind, the magisterium itself claims authority not only over those things that are revealed by God, but also over anything that relates to something revealed by God. So this might be matters of history, or matters of fact, matters of science, matters of politics, insofar as they are directly related to something revealed by God. And this is why popes have always pontificated, pun intended, on matters of politics or history, and expected Catholics to assent to what they taught. So one can't come back and say, oh, Pope, you need to stick to your wheelhouse. Just talk about matters of faith. Because in reality, politics, history, and other issues concerning facts, if related to the faith, are within his purview. Not to mention that the Church itself claims to have authority not only over the spiritual realm, but also matters that are temporal in nature. It claims to have authority not only over the Church, but also over states. So to bring it back full circle, if somebody asks you if you accept the teachings of the Pope, even if they're not infallible, and you come back and say, well, I accept the definitive teachings of the Pope, it's really misleading, and it gives people the impression that somehow, if it's not infallible, it's up for grabs, and that's just simply not what the Church teaches. I think it's important for Catholics, whether they're cradle Catholics or they're converts like myself who's been Catholic for over 10 years, should know their obligations to the teaching authority of the Church. In a time when so many people are confused about Catholicism, whether they're Catholics or not, we simply cannot afford this kind of ignorance. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate your support. And while you're at it, hit the like button. We'll see you later. God bless. Are you seeking clarity in the midst of confusion about Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism? In my book, Answering Orthodoxy, I offer a biblical and historical response to the most common objections that Eastern Orthodox offer against the Catholic Church. This book is for anyone searching for the truth, whether you're Catholic, Orthodox, or simply trying to make sense of the differences between Catholics and Orthodox. Order your copy today and discover the rational, biblical, and historical basis for the Catholic Church. Visit Amazon to order your copy today. Are you ready to deepen your faith and sharpen your understanding of theology? Welcome to the Center for Theological Research, your gateway to transformative learning. At CTR, you will find in-depth courses designed to equip you with the tools to grow in your understanding of the faith. Explore courses like the 7 Ecumenical Councils and uncover the foundational truths that shape Christianity. Master the ability to determine the level of a doctrine in the Theological Notes course. And in the Logical Fallacies and Apologetics course, you'll learn to spot the logical errors often encountered in non-Catholic apologetics content. Also, check out the ebooks that are available to you for free. Start your journey today. Visit ctresearch.org and take the next step in your faith formation. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and if you want to support the channel, visit patreon.com/Reason and Theology.